Hey y'all, welcome to the very basics of crochet. Full disclosure, I am making this video for my coworkers. As part of the Wellness and Retention Committee, I had suggested having a little crochet club impromptu for work to help teach some of my coworkers that would be interested in learning to crochet, to help with de-stressing the way it has for me. And I was more than happy to make these videos as a companion to the very brief amount of time we have together for this purpose at work. And what this project will include is everything from tension, basic stitches, and we will be creating a dishcloth. This one is orange. I made the pattern up myself, very, very super simple. And I'm keeping it simple for the ease of learning. So at the end of this project, you will have a very nice dishcloth. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so let's go over what you received in your adorable little project bag that I've made for you today. It's a very nice thick canvas that you could definitely embroider on or screen print something on or put an iron-on patch on. So yeah, really nice bags. I'm gonna have to buy these again. So in your bag, you have received approximately 2.5 ounces of number 4 weight cotton yarn, which this is an example of here. Yours may not look exactly the same, but rest assured, we all have the same product, just different appearance. And the reason we're going to go ahead and start with a cotton number 1, because we're making a dishcloth, which works best if using 100% cotton yarn. And you're also received a 5mm, see, 5mm crochet hook. That is what this size yarn and type of yarn suggests that we use. There are more ergonomic choices out there, but due to needing to purchase in a kind of a bulk situation, I chose to get these, mainly because it's the same size all the way down. So even though this flat part is here, that does not change the stitching in any way. And this would actually be able to be used for multiple purposes moving forward in crocheting. You could actually do small intarsia projects, crocheted intarsia, or Tunisian crochet. So you also receive some stitch markers. I have went ahead and put a slip knot to save on time onto your string for you. And I went ahead and put a crochet, stitch marker on it so that it would not pull out. I suggest we just go ahead and leave that on for the duration of the project. So if you find that you want to frog back, which means pull your work out and start over, and we call it frogging because you rip it. It's just cute little lingo. So you won't lose your slip knot. I will teach you how in this video. However, due to the sake of time in person, I went ahead and got this ready for you. You also received some more stitch markers so that we can mark the ends stitches of our project so that you make sure to work completely from one side to the other without missing stitches. And I even included one cute little stitch marker that I made. It may not be this cute little Hello Kitty, but it will definitely be one of her friends. I now find I really enjoy having adorable stitch markers to make my projects even more fun. So there you go. All right, so now that we know what we've got, why don't we get started? Okay, now let's look at what we've got going on So like I said, what we'll be working with is a number 4 weight cotton yarn. So Janice, what does that mean? What that means is we're working with a number 4, which when you purchase a ball of yarn, like this one here, which is made by Lily, it's called Sugar and Cream. It is a number 4 weight cotton yarn. And then it tells you that it suggests you use a 4.5 millimeter knitting needle. You can tell that's what that is by the 2 needles there. Or a 5 millimeter crochet hook, which is what you have been given in your package. It also gives you washing machine instructions. So what you have received today may or may not look like this. Again, like I said, it may be just caked up by me and look like this, or it may look like this, which is also a number 4 weight, right? And it also suggests, I believe, a 5 millimeter crochet hook. Well, I through K, J is in there. So what do we know about, and this one is a little bit softer, but that doesn't change anything about it should all work up the same, no issues, okay? So yours might look like this in your bag, or it may not. It may look like something different, but rest assured, we all have the same thing. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we have put the crochet hook into our slip knot. I am confident that I do not need the stitch marker in there to save my place. But again, you might want to go ahead and leave yours in so that if you have to frog it back, you can do that and not lose your slip knot. However, if you choose to take your stitch marker off and then something happens and you frog back and have lost, or you've completed your project and want to make another one, right? Let's learn how to slip knot. So if I just pull on my short tail, which we leave a decent sized tail, maybe at least 6 inches, that we'll use to weave our end in later. If you tug on it, your slip knot disappears, right? So why don't we go ahead and learn how to make that slip knot. So if something were to happen and you lose it, or you just want to learn for future projects, let's do that. All right, so I've zoomed in a little bit so that we can now concentrate on how we're going to make our slip knot. So this here is our short end that we're going to keep about 6 inches of tail, right? Mine might be a little bit more, but it doesn't matter. Just enough so we'll be able to weave our end in at the end. So I am right-handed, and I'm going to say now, I apologize that I do not have well manicured hands. If you know me in real life, you know what I do for a living, and you know I'm not allowed to have pretty hands. We're not allowed to wear nail polish, especially like shellac or gels, and we're definitely not allowed acrylic nails. And I also have an autoimmune disorder, so that accompanied with my profession keeps me from sporting well manicured, beautiful hands. So please disregard any of that. I apologize. So I am right-handed, so I do the bulk of my work with my right hand, but I hold tension with my left. And that's probably going to be our biggest hurdle when you're learning crochet, is the tension. And we'll cover that next after we make our slip knot. So our short tail is in this hand. This is our working end. That's the end attached to our ball of yarn. So we have our tail and our working end, okay? So the tail is in my right hand, all right? Working in the left. So what I'm going to do now is make a loop holding both with my left hand. This is just how I do it. You are more than welcome to look on YouTube and find other ways of making them from other content providers that might resonate better with you and your learning style. This is just how I do it. So what I do is I make just an open loop in my left hand. I then take my thumb and index finger and grasp the loop and just flip it. So we're getting an infinity symbol, possibly a number 8, right? And I'm just going to grab the top loop because that's my working end, and I'm going to pull it through. You see, we're kind of pulling it through, and we're going to tighten it down. Okay, now why did I grab the top? That's because when I go to put my crochet hook through and I want to tighten it down, I'm not tightening it down and taking more yarn into my weaving end. I'm putting it back into my working end. Over time, if you have to do that repetitively, you're going to end up with a really long tail that you don't need, and you're kind of wasting your yarn that you don't need to. We're going to try and save as much as possible, right? You have more than enough yarn in your project bag for this project. You could even make it wider if you wanted, or longer if you wanted. You're going to have plenty. So not enough to make quite 2 of these, but definitely 1.5, or if you want it to go bigger. But let's learn how to do that again, okay? I'm going to take my hook out. I'm going to pull my short tail. There you go, all done. And now I'm going to do it again. So I make a loop. I pull this one here. So I have a loop in my left hand. I grasp that loop and I flip it. Just so I'm making an infinity or like a number 8, right? Okay, and now I'm going to reach. I kind of put my finger through to hold it open, and I'm going to grab the top one, which again belongs to my working end. And I'm going to just pull that down tight because I'm still holding these, so it will pull down tight and it's not a problem. And now that gives you plenty of room to put your stitch marker back in if you choose, or not, completely up to you, and get your hook in without incident. Now we're going to tighten down, and that's just by pulling the 2 ends. And you want to tighten, right? You don't want it too loose so that your crochet hook falls out, but you don't want it too tight that it doesn't want to slip, because that's going to be key. Holding tension and not crocheting so tight that your hook doesn't want to either enter a stitch or pull through the stitch. This is going to be trial and error, I promise you guys, but you're going to get it, because this is where I struggled the most in the beginning as well. Okay, so now that we've got our hook, we're going to be able to start. Okay, all right, let's get to tension. Okay, so let's talk about tension. So first, let me state that working with cotton yarn, you might notice your hands start to feel a little dried out. That would be because the cotton is absorbent, of course, as we expect cotton to be, and it will absorb the oils and moisture from your skin. So I just recommend going ahead and applying some hand lotion at the start, or whenever you might feel necessary to re-moisturize. Completely normal. As you can tell, I have gone ahead and put some on because my hands aren't as ashy as they were in the first part of this video. So let's talk about tension. Tension is what's going to help you create your stitches, and they're not going to be too tight or too loose. You're going to be holding your yarn in your non-dominant hand, whether that be right hand or left hand, and then working your stitches with your dominant hand. Now, we'll get to how we hold our hook in the next part. So about tension, you can look on YouTube and you're going to find tutorials from a plethora of people, and none of them do it wrong. It's just going to be what resonates with you. So if my way just seems too cumbersome or you can't get it, please feel free to go ahead and find other tutorials on YouTube that may or may not resonate with you. I actually attribute my crochet learning to 2 different people on YouTube, and they actually both tension the yarn differently than from each other and differently from me. So one day when I was struggling, my hand just kind of did this thing and it worked. So what works for me is I pick up my yarn and I kind of scoop it. Oh, you know what's going to work better? I'm going to just back out a bit. There we go. I think that's better for this part. Okay. I kind of just scoop up the yarn in my ring finger and my pinky and just kind of let it wrap around, and then it kind of comes over my middle finger and up and over my index. So that when I start working now, it's holding the tension for me, right? See that? So let me back up. I'm frogging my stitches. There we go. To start again. Okay. Like I said, you want to make sure that you can move this, because that's going to be very important later on. You'll definitely notice, because as we end a row and then turn our work to start the next row going in the opposite direction, if you're crocheting too tight, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to get into your stitches. So we want to build tension from the very beginning to have success with our projects. So again, what works and resonates for me is that I pick up the working yarn in my open hand and I wrap it around my ring and pinky fingers, and then kind of up and over my index finger, see, so that it's kind of running between my index and my middle. And then that leaves my ring finger and my thumb free to grasp this end, so that you're kind of doing a 3-point here. See, now I've got control of my working area, because otherwise if I'm doing this, look at it, you're just kind of all over the place trying to work with it, right? It's kind of hard to really even get attention. You need to hold your work, right? So I'm holding my work here, and as we move forward, this is holding your project, right? And then that way I can just now pull through and make my chains, right? So, and then as you move along, you can just pull your yarn and keep going. See that? Okay. So let me do that one more time for you, and then we'll move on to holding the crochet hook. So I'm going to frog my work, and that just means you pull your working. Don't pull like super fast, because then you're going to end up, you might pull more than you wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out down to my starting loop. Okay. So you want your weaving end tail going toward the side of your working hand, your dominant hand, and you want your working string towards your non-dominant hand. So I have my hook and my tail in my right, my working yarn and the ball on my left. And then I can put my hook in. See, nice and loose, okay? And now over my ring and pinky, kind of bring it up and over my middle, and then bring it around my index. And over time, you'll notice mine will move, and that's actually my sweet spot right there. And you're going to say, how do you know that? Because look, I have a line. It's what happens. I mean, it's going to happen whether you crochet or knit or whatever. Sometimes you end up with lines on your hands, and there are actually people who have tattooed it there. And if I ever take long enough off from work that I wouldn't need to scrub in for a few days, I might actually do that myself. So one more time, and then I'm going to move on to the crochet hook holding. So we're going to around my ring and pinky, kind of over my middle, back and around my index, so that I can now hold my yarn. And this is going to work as my guide. My index is going to work as my guide, and my hook. So you see how now I've got control over what I'm doing, and I'm not losing anything. And now I'm going to be able to pull through. Okay, all right, let's talk about holding our hooks. Holding our crochet hook. There is two main ways. Again, neither is wrong, but you may find something works differently for you. From the minute I picked up a crochet hook, my hand just wanted to grab it like it's a knife, like I'm going to cut, right? Like I'm going to cut. There are people who hold it more like a pen. I have tried that way, actually. I'm just not physically able to do it. Let's see. I don't think I can, but I'll show you. Around with my yarn. Hold on, because I'm trying to look through the camera to do it, and that throws me off. Okay. Yeah. Let's see if I can even do it. I mean, it's going to feel so wonky. Let's see. Oh, barely. Yeah, I personally cannot do that this way. But if that feels more comfortable for you, again, please, by all means, view a different tutorial about how to get started. If you grab that crochet hook and it immediately went to your hand like a pen, you might just want to jump on and watch someone else's video about how to chain and stuff like that. But for me, that's just not possible. I'm just not physically able to do it that way. But I hold mine like a knife. I find I have better control over it, and I tend to do a little, you know, once you get started, you're kind of be like death gripping, and that's normal. You know, tight tension and death gripping at the beginning is completely normal. But for me, now that I'm very laxed in my crochet work, I tend to get to a point, so sorry about that, guys, where I just kind of hold it with these fingers and loosey-goosey. I don't death grip it. But we're going to go ahead and put our loop back on our hook, wrap the yarn. And if it makes it easier when you are at the very beginning to keep the tail for weaving at the end out of the way, you can kind of hold that in your hand with your hook so that it's just staying out of our way. It's completely normal. And once we get going, it's not even going to cause an issue later on. But our first row or two, it might get in the way, and you want to make sure that you're grabbing your working end and not this end. Because if for some reason you had a super long tail, you might accidentally grab that and start working, which wouldn't be horrible. I mean, you would just have to frog it. But let's just start from the right way at the very beginning, right? And not have to make a boo-boo. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that in my hand with my hook while I get started. I'm going to wrap my yarn, as we've talked about, and I'm going to grip it here, okay? And now we're going to make our chain, which will be our working end to start our basic dishcloth with. We have to chain stitches first. So it's like starting with a number of stitches that we will then work through. And when I mean chaining, where I started was here. This is where we're going to start at right now. We're going to start at this end, right? And we're going to do some chains so that we have stitches to work into to make our dishcloth. Okay? So let's jump into that. I went in ahead and zoomed in, guys, so that I can show you better how to get started. So as you can see, our hook has a little mouth to it that's going to help with picking up our yarn. So the biggest lingo that you're going to find is yarn over. Yarn over means everything. And in a pattern, all you're doing when you yarn over is literally that. That was yarn over, right? You can achieve that by moving your left hand or your non-dominant, moving the yarn, or by using your hook in your dominant hand and just kind of going behind. Neither way is wrong. You can even do it as a combo of the two. As I get moving in my projects, I tend to do it mostly with my left hand so that my right hand is doing the work it's supposed to do, and this is helping. It makes me a little bit faster, that's all. So what we're going to do is we want to have tension. You see, you don't want it really lax like that. You want tension, okay? And so what we're going to do is simply that. That's a yarn over once. Look at that, okay? Now this is where that hook does its job. So we're going to then bring that loop through. See that? Okay, let's do it again. And you might find it helps you to do this by holding the yarn that is on your hook currently, which is a chain. We just made one chain. Okay, each one of these is called a chain, and I will show you the stitch work after we finish our change. Chains. Did I say change? Sorry guys, I meant chains. After we make our chains, I'll show you the anatomy of the stitch so that you understand and are able to visualize it on your own work. So moving forward, I find it easier to keep control of my project and what I'm doing by putting my index finger, like just to hold it while I do this, so it doesn't slide up or slide down or come off. It could pop off, that could happen. So I hold my finger and then pull through my yarn. And as you saw what just happened, where my hook wanted to just go through only one of the little strands, you see how it's made up? That can happen, guys. And if it does, just adjust a little bit. And I mean, that's all part of crochet. Sometimes our yarn splits on us. It's the nature of the beast. So as you can see, I now have 2 chains on my hook. Let's do another one. I'm going to yarn over. I'm holding my work, and then I'm just going to bring it through. Yarn over, holding my work, and I'm just going to pull it through. You see, I'm still holding my project here. Now, as you see, I'm kind of struggling. That's because I'm getting some work done, and now I don't have as much control over it. So now I have to choke up on my stitches and grab it up here closer to my hook so I have better control. So I'm going to yarn over, holding here, and I'm going to pull through. Okay? Holding my work, yarn over, pull through. If you don't want to hold that, you don't have to with your right hand. Okay? Yarn over, pull through. 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 Okay, you see what I'm doing? I'm making chains. And a lot of people, when they first start, they're like, well, I want to get really good at chains before I move on to the next stitch. So they literally will just make a ball of nothing but chains, which I've always thought is hilarious to me. But hey, it works because any person teaching crochet on YouTube will usually tell you that it's important to have good structure on your stitches so that when you go back to work in them in the next round, you're not struggling, right? So for our pattern, we want 31 chains on our end to make our dishcloth. So we're going to do these, make this yarn over, pull through, oops, off camera, yarn over, pull through, and we want a total of 31. Okay, so let me back out because I want to do it from the beginning with you to make it easy. And we're going to count. Okay, there we go. All right. put my yarn on my hook. There we go. And the one that is on there right now does not count. It's 0. But as soon as we go like this and pull through, it's now chain 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I'm moving too fast for you guys, feel free to slow me down on your controls there on YouTube. We have 6, right? We sure do. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is the one that's on the hook right now. 7, yarn over. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, oops, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. Hi, 30. Okay. So now we have 31 stitches. This is how wide our dishcloth will be. Your chains might be larger. You might have pulled really tight and they're smaller. But what we're trying to achieve is just uniformity. So if your chains are larger, perfectly fine. It'll still work, right? You just want uniformity. But what you also might notice is a couple of them are really small and then a couple get bigger. And that's the tension. It's completely due to tension. And I just love this speckle yarn. I think it's so fun. I'm going to throw that in there because if you look, as we're working, you see we'll get a little splash of color. And I just think that's so fun. Okay, so we have 31 chains on our hook. So feel free to pause at this point and catch up. But now we're going to talk about the anatomy of the stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and pause to start with that section. Okay, I have my 31 chains, right? Okay, as you can see, I took my hook off and I put a stitch marker so that I don't lose my stitches. That's the whole purpose of it. The difference between knitting and crochet, besides the fact that anything crocheted is done by a human hand, knitting can be achieved by a machine. Crochet can only be achieved by a human hand. Please keep that in mind if you ever buy something that is crocheted in your daily life. If you're at a store and you buy a hand crocheted blouse, which I say hand crochet because it's synonymous. If it's crocheted, it's done by someone's hands, not by a machine. So please keep that in consideration and choose to not purchase crocheted items at a discount, if you get what I'm saying. You know, the fast fashion, it could either be machine knitting that is made to mimic the look of crochet, which you would be able to tell if you looked very closely if it was actually crocheted, or real crocheted items. And if you wonder why real crocheted items are expensive, it's because somebody made it with their own 2 hands. They put a lot of work and effort into it, just like you're about to. And then you'll recognize the value, I hope. So let's talk about our stitch anatomy. And I'm going to zoom in for this so you guys can get a better look. All right. A chain and stitches as well, and I'll show you those as we make them, is made up of 3 pieces. As you can see, it looks like a braid, very, very much like a braid, as if you were braiding your hair or your child's hair, or just yarn in general if you were braiding it. So what you have, let's turn this way, is you have 2 loops on the front. See, 1 and 2, 1 here and 1 here. And then we're going to flip our work over, turn it over, and you have like what looks like a bump. It's like a, see that? It's like a bump. It's this back spine, right? So this is prone, haha, for my work buddies. This would be prone. This would be supine, if that helps to make this any easier for you. We have supine and prone. Work humor. Okay, so what we're going to do now that we have our 31 stitches, and we actually are going to have 30 stitches per row, and I'll show you now why we have 31. But again, supine, we have the front of our work, or the top of it with chains, 2 legs. And on the prone version, we have our spine, or our bumps. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to work into these bumps. And the reason being, as you can see here on our finished model, that will give you a nice pretty edge. See that? It looks nice and pretty and uniform. And it will look like the top that we end with at the end. See, with our little loop that we made here so we can hang it near our stove or our dishwasher. So it will look uniform like this one does. See? Here, I'll show you them together. There. That way they look nice and uniform. And you end up with a much prettier result. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, we're back on the hook and we have our 31. We are in stitch number 31. And the reason we have 31 is because our project actually will be 30 stitches wide. Okay, so we're going to be 30 stitches wide, and then we'll be 25 rows tall. So we're going to make a row, which means from this end to this end, from this end to this end, 25 times. So we'll go this way, and then we'll turn our work, and we'll work back this way. That would be 2 rows, because we're going to go 1 row this way. Then we're going to turn our work, and we're going to work back this way, and that'll be row number 2. And what ends up happening is you end up with what's called a right side of your work and a wrong side of your work. The odd numbers is the right side. Even numbers are your wrong side. And I'll show you how we'll be able to differentiate between the two and what will make it easiest for you so you don't lose track. So we have 31 stitches because what we want to do is we don't want to have our ends pinch. If I was to go ahead and try to work into this first stitch, which would be right here, you see this teeny tiny nub here? Let me zoom in for you. Okay. You see this teeny tiny nub here? If I try to work into that, I mean, technically we could, but then that's going to create the ends to be extremely like pinched in, and they're going to be shorter than the rest of the work. And your dishcloth won't be a nice square. It's going to have some weird shaping to it. So we don't work into that one. We work into the next one so that that gives us space for our project to sit up, for the height to match on the end as it does with the stitches. Okay, so we have 31 because we're actually going to work into our second stitch from the hook. So what does that mean? That means the one I'm in right now is right here, technically, because remember, what's on my hook would be, for all accounts and purposes, would be stitch number 32, right? Because you can't actually work into this one because it won't go anywhere, right? So that technically does not count. So 31 is this one right here, okay? We want to work into number 30, which is right here. And it's got that little bit of blue on it, okay? So what we do is we now turn our work over so that we're prone, and we're working into the back bumps, the backs of the stitches, right? So with our finger on our hook, to get into there, what we need to do, remember, tension is key. We're going to, and I usually have to use my index finger to help me get in there. So what we want to do is, there we go. It takes a second, but you'll get in there. And this is the worst part, guys. Getting into the chains is the worst part. Once we start actual rows into stitches, it's so much easier. The chains are the worst, I promise. So as you can see now, I went through that back bump. I'm in the back bump second stitch, okay? And we're gonna do just like we did before. We're gonna yarn over, however you do it. If you wanna do it with your left finger or your non-dominant bringing the yarn over, or if you want to do it with your dominant wrapping behind. Either way works, right? So now we've yarn over, and we're going to pull like we're making a chain, right? And we're going to bring it through. But now look what happens. We now have 2 loops on the hook, right? Not like what we had before. Perfectly normal, right? So now what we're making is a single crochet. It's a single crochet stitch. Words. Okay. Now, in order to complete the stitch, because anytime you have more than 1 loop on your hook, you're not done. If you have 2, if you have 3, if you have 4, you're not done, right? You have to have 1 on your hook for the stitch to be complete. So I have 2. So we're just going to do what we did before. Yarn over, however you want to do it, and we're going to pull through both of those. And we've just made a single crochet, okay? Now, what are we going to do so that we don't lose this stitch? Not that we're going to lose it, it won't fall out, guys. But what will happen is, if we don't know the anatomy of our stitches, we might not recognize it, and we might not work into it when we come back at the end. And we're doing row number 2. So, especially in the very beginning, I can't stress enough it's the importance of putting a stitch marker into your end stitches so that you keep on track and don't lose a stitch. So I am going to take one of these stitch markers and I just feed it through both of those loops that you see there. See there's 2 loops? There's 2 loops. That's what makes up the top of the stitch, right? Just like what you saw at the bottom, right? 2 loops make up the stitch. So I just went ahead and put my stitch marker through both of those, and it just works like a safety pin or clothespin. You just close it. Okay? There, we've already made a stitch. Congratulations. Now, what's going to give us this neat texture? It's called the seed stitch, but it's just literally doing nothing but single crochet and double crochet. I have made this to be as easy as possible. You're learning 3 stitches at once. You're learning the chains, single crochet, and double crochet. And all of this is US terms because, well, we live in the US. UK terms are different, and that's important for you to know moving forward if you choose patterns from other designers who may or may not use US terms. If they use UK terms, you'll have to look up stitch names for that. Okay? They actually call a single crochet a double crochet, so you know. And I have actually made patterns in the past and screwed all of that up and had to frog my work because it was in UK terms and I was working in US stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a double crochet. We just did a single and now we're going to do a double. Okay? The difference is we are going to do what we've already learned how to do. We're going to yarn over and then we're going to go into that back bump. Whereas to make a single crochet, we literally did not yarn over until after we went through the bump, right? So now we're going to yarn over before we go in the bump because that's going to give us 2 times the height that a single does, which is why it's called a double. Okay, so I'm holding my work with my dominant hand for stability. Remember, we learned stability. So I'm holding it with here. Got my hook in my hand. I'm holding my chains with everything but my index finger, right? And we got control over everything. See that? I'm in control of everything. If we're not holding it, lots of things can happen, and that's where your tension goes wonky. Now, see how much tension I have here? This is going to be really difficult to work with. So what do? Simple. You drop your yarn, you pick it back up, you thread it through your hand to get to a shorter working end, right? Now see, I've come in a lot shorter. Easier for me to work like this, okay? So we're going to work into the spine, into the back bump. We're going to yarn over, which we've already learned, and by this time I call it mastering because you've already done it like 33 times by now, because you had to make your slip knot, right? Then you had to make your 31 chains, and then you just had to yarn over to get into your first stitch, which was number 30. Okay, so we're going to yarn over, and now I'm holding my work with my index like I have been before, but it just so happened holding both, and that's fine. And then we're going to wiggle into our back bump, which, remember, doing it on the chains is the hardest. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're going to do what we did before to make our single. We're going to yarn over and we're going to pull it through this bump. There, right? I gave myself a little more tension. See that? You don't want to pull it so tight because look what happens. It's super tight. You're not going to be able to work. You don't want it too loose either because see what happens? You're going to have really uneven stitches that way. That's why we say tension is key. Tension is what's going to make or break your projects, okay? So we now have 3 loops on our hook, okay? Now to make a double crochet, we're just going to do what we did for a single crochet, but we're going to do it twice. So my finger is holding so that it doesn't go anywhere, and I have control. Control is key. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull my yarn through the first 2 because that's like a single crochet, right? So that right there, if we stopped, would be a single crochet. But then you see we still have 2 loops on our hook, which means we're not done, right? You're not done until you have only 1. So what do we need to do? Exactly. We need to yarn over, however we choose to do it, be it this hand, or a combination of both, right? Yarn over and pull through 2, okay? And now you can see that our stitches look different, right? This one only has 1 story. This one has 2, like a 2-story house, right? You got a single story and a 2-story, right? And you're like, but the height's different. That's going to look wonky. That's exactly what we're going for. That's exactly what we're going for. Because otherwise, what we would end up with, if all we did was 1 stitch, we wouldn't end up with this really cool texture, this back and forth that gives these, it kind of gives it a neat pattern, right? It kind of looks pretty, but it feels really neat. And if we're actually going to use our dishcloth, because that's the point, we're making these so that we use them, what we want, let me back out so you can get a better look. what we want is this really pretty texture, and it also works in our favor when scrubbing our dishes, right? Exactly. So that's what we want, and that's what how we're going to achieve it. Let's zoom back in, is by doing alternating those 2 stitches that we now know. Okay, so we've worked into our first 2 stitches. So now we're going to go back to putting in a single. So we're going to go single, double, all the way to the end. And what's going to happen on every single row that we do, we're going to start with a single and end with a double. So let's continue. Single, double. So now we know we have to do a single, right? Okay. Well, to do a single, we don't yarn over. We just go into the spine. So we go in the spine or the bump. We're going into the back bump. Again, I have to, because you're going to, I crochet tight, by the way. I knit and crochet tight. So I know that. So I always have to adjust for it. All right, so I went into my spine. Now, holding, I'm going to yarn over and pull through the spine. And we have 2 stitches on the hook. So what's that say? We're not done, right? We're not done. We got to keep going. Okay. So let me move it closer to the end, because it's always easier if you keep your work at the end of the hook. If you're back here, again, you don't have control. You want to be close to the end, right? So now we're going to yarn over again, and we're going to pull through those 2. There we go. Right? So now we have single, double, single, right? Okay. Now, here's our next spine. As you can see them in order. There's a spine, there's a spine, there's a spine, there's a spine. And that coordinates with stitches. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we have to work into this next spine. We have to work into the bump. So we just did a single. Now we're going to do a double. So to do our double, what's that? Yarn over. Let's say it together. We yarn over. Then we go into the back bump. Right? There you are. And then we have now 2 on our hook, and we're through the bump. So we yarn over, pull our work through the bump, and we have 3 loops on our hook. Okay? 3 loops. Now, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay? Are we done? Nope. We have 2. We need 1. We have 2. We need 1. So we yarn over, pull through 2, and we're done. See that? Single, double, single, double. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause and finish the row, and we'll meet at the end of the row. And if you are struggling, just go to the beginning of this section and watch these 4 stitches be made to help you through the rest. Okay? Okay, guys, I'm back with my row, and I have 3 stitches left to do, because I thought it would probably be a great idea for us to do this together at the end, so you know what it should look like. So if you remember, this is the end that we started at. This is our working tail, our tail, and that was our first chain, and we made 31 chains. We then started our project in the second chain from the hook, which was stitch number 1, making this stitch number 30. We're going to have 30 stitches in every row and a total of 25 rows. So let's make our last few stitches. So as you can see, we have a couple left to do. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in now for you guys. Okay. Okay, there we go. Because I'm trying to watch what I'm doing through the camera, and it's really hard for me. So there's 3 chains left. See that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, which means what? What is this stitch? See if you guys can tell me. That's a single, right? So that means double, single, double. Remember I told you, we start every single row with a single crochet, and we end every row with a double crochet, so that our pattern of the single double continues as the rows go as well. That way we're not working a single stitch into a single and a double into a double. We're always alternating. We're alternating left to right, and we're also alternating up and down. Okay? So that means our next stitch is going to be a double crochet. So let me get closer. Here we go. There. Now I'm got my control, right? It's all about the control. Okay? And tension. Tension and control. Finger holding. So I'm going to make a double. So we're going to yarn over, work into our back bump, into our spine, right? Okay, and then we're going to yarn over again and pull through. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, right? There you go. So our next one is a single. So we don't yarn over, we just go into our bump. Like I said, this is the hardest part, is this row, I promise. So I'm through the bump, yarn over, pull through. I have 2 on my hook, so I'm not done yet. Yarn over, pull through 2. Single crochet, okay? Now here's our last one, and this looks different than what you're used to because our slip knot is here. That's where it's supposed to be, I promise. Okay, so we still have a back bump though. See, it might look a little different, but it's still there. And there's the 2 legs on that side, okay? So now we're going to yarn over, holding our yarn so we don't slip off or get too loose. This one is probably the hardest one to work in, but still doable, okay? There we go. Whoops, I was out of camera, sorry. There we go. See, and there's our slip knot we made from the very beginning. All right, so we have 3 loops on our hook, right? Okay, yarn over, pull through the back bump, through the spine. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, which means we're making a double. We have 3 loops, we're making a double. Okay, yarn over, pull through 2, right? Yarn over, pull through 2. Look at that. We've completed our first row, guys. Congratulations. I want to back out because I want to show you something. Okay, let me back out. So this is the end of our work. Now, because I want to show you without the hook in the way, I'm going to pull this up a little bit to give me a big loop so that I don't accidentally pull it out while I chat at you about this, okay? So if you remember, we put a stitch marker in our very first stitch for a reason, because we don't want to miss it later on, right? And we're going to do that at this end as well. However, this is what's the right side of our work, right? And how do we know it's the right side? There's several ways to tell. But the easiest for you to know is you always want your tail that you will weave in at the end to be at the bottom left corner of your work if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it'll be the bottom right of your work. That means this is the right side. And that's why I've given you extra stitch markers at this point. Now at this point, what you want to do, so you know the right side of your work, you have this to show you. But to make life easy, what I always do to show me my right side of my work is I put a stitch marker on the right side. You can use this kind, or you can use your cute, adorable stitch marker here. I tend to use my cute, adorable stitch marker for when I want to put it into my working stitch so that I can put my project away and come back to it later, and I haven't lost any stitches because it worked itself out while in my project bag. And I'll show you how to do that later. But so what we want to do is just go ahead and find an area in the front of your work where you have a couple legs. It doesn't matter, anything will work. Hold on, I'm going to zoom in. That's going to be easier. There we go. See here? Find somewhere, anywhere. And you just want to put your stitch marker through a couple of your loops, like right here works, right? Okay, that's a stitch right there. That's the legs of a double crochet. See? 1, 2. It's a 2-story house, not a single story. 2-story house. So we're going to feed this through the 2 legs of the house, right? Snap it closed. So now you know that's the front of your work. That's the back of your work. No stitch marker. Front of work. Okay? So now we're at the end, and I'm going to teach you how to turn your work and go to row 2. Okay. All right. We have our 30 stitches. We've ended with our double crochet. Now we need to turn our work and head the other direction, right? Now we got to work row number 2. So to do that, I put my yarn on my hand. Now, remember what we talked about at this end, where we worked into the second chain from the hook so that our project would be as tall on the ends as it is in the middle? Well, we need to do that at this end as well so that we don't have an issue. But we're not going to work into the second chain from the hook because then we're missing the first stitch. And that's how you end up losing a stitch throughout your project and your number count being off. So what we need to do at this point is to yarn over and pull through to make 1 chain. Because remember, we had a chain 1 at the end here, right? Because we started with a single crochet. So now we have a chain 1. We're going to turn our work, turn, which is literally just flipping it in your hand, I swear. So we made our chain 1, right? And now I tend to turn my work this way. Okay? But you could also turn it that way. Neither way is wrong, guys. Either way works. So since I'm already facing this way, this is the way we're going to go. So we have a chain 1 like we did at the other end, and now we're going to work into our first stitch. Now remember, our first stitch is this double crochet right here that we made last on row 1. Now, this is where it looks different than what you've done at this point, right? You know what? It matters to me. Hold on, I got to turn my work the other way. That keeps the working yarn out of your way. At least it does for me. So there, boom. And that puts my working yarn here towards the back. You always want your working yarn, towards the back of your work. So that way it's not in your way while you're working, and it makes your stitches work right. See, because this way if it's in front, it's going to show and it's not going to come out right. So you want it towards the back. Okay. So now we're going to work into our first stitch. Is this our first stitch? It's not, because that's the chain we just made. Because remember, what's on the hook is not anything, that doesn't count because that's our live stitch. That is our live stitch. That doesn't count. That's what we're doing right now. This right here is the chain we just made to get us to the height that we need to be at, right? So what we need to work into is this stitch right here. Remember, the tops of our stitches have the 2 legs. It looks like a V, right? So we want to go through both legs of that V stitch. This is where it gets easier. Instead of trying to work through a back bump, we're working through the 2 legs, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to put our hook yarn with our finger on our yarn, and we're going to put it through No, it's not a yarn over, right? Because we're doing a single crochet. So we're going to put it through both legs of our stitch. Hold on, let me try to show you both legs. See that? Both legs are on my hook, okay? And then we're going to yarn over and pull through, okay? There we go. We have yarned over and pulled through. Yarn is to the back of our work, okay? And as you've already now know, if you have 2 on your hook, you're not done. So you're going to yarn over and pull through those 2. Okay? There. Now we've put a single crochet on top of a double crochet. And just like we did before, we're going to put our stitch marker here to mark the first stitch of the row. So I'm going to reach in my little cup here and get my other stitch marker. And we're going to go through the 2 legs. Okay, there. I went through both legs with my stitch marker, and I'm going to close it. There we go. And we're doing that so that we know that will be our last stitch. We're going to keep working until we get there, just like we did at this end. Okay, so we just put a single crochet on top of a double crochet, right? So that means our next stitch is a single crochet, so we have to put a double on top. The pattern stays the same. So now it's single, double, okay? So we're holding our work, right? I'm holding my work with my hands. It's not a chain anymore. Now it's actually a project. So we're holding it for tension, and I tend to just hold here because, I mean, it's easier, and I don't want to just keep, because if you don't hold it, what you end up doing is you start pulling and things, you lose tension again, right? So I just hold it. I have my finger on top, right? Okay, we're going to yarn over because we're doing a double, and we're going to go through both those legs. There's the stitch right here. We're going to go through both those legs. We're through both legs of the stitch. See that? And we're going to yarn over again, and we're going to pull through. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. Okay? Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay? Single, double. All right? So now what comes next? Exactly, a single. So we're going to go through both legs. So let me show you this way. I'm going through both legs. See that? And then I'm going to yarn over, pull through both. We've got 2 on our hook. Okay? Yarn over, pull through 2. This is hard for me, guys. I'm trying not to look through the camera. It's so hard. Hold on. I'm going to, see? And then look, I made a boo-boo, right? But I don't have, oh, what happens? What do we do now? Okay, I'll show you. I made a boo-boo because I'm trying to watch what I'm doing through the camera so I don't go out of focus for you. And I messed myself up. So what do? We just pull our working yarn out, boop, right? And you see now I still have my loop through the 2 legs of the stitch. So now all I need to do is get my hook back into it through the front, because that's how we brought the stitch through, right? You don't want to enter through the back of it because that's kind of wonky. You want to go through the front of it because that's how we brought the yarn through the stitch, okay? So I have 2 on my hook again. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. There we go. And we made a stitch. We made our single crochet, okay? Let's keep going. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to go through both legs. See, we're through both legs. Stick our hook through. Grab the yarn, pull it through. See, now we have 3. And then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, let's keep going. So now we're going to do a single. So we're not going to yarn over. We're going to stick through the 2. There's the 2. okay? And then we're going to yarn over and pull through. We have 2 stitches. We're going to yarn over and complete the stitch. So we have a single. The next one is a double. Remember, we're just alternating. So we're going to yarn over, go through the 2 legs of the stitch. There we are, okay? We're going to yarn over again and pull it through. There you go. And then we're going to pull through 2 with a yarn over, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. See that? So, yeah, exactly. Now we're going to single. So we're going to go through the 2 legs. There they are. We're going to yarn over, pull the stitch through, right? And then we're going to yarn over again and pull through those 2. Single. Now we're going to go into a double, okay? Yarn over through both legs. See how much easier this is now that we have the chain done? So much easier. Now we're going to yarn over, pull through. We have 3, so yarn over, pull through 2. Still have 2, so we're not done. Yarn over, pull through 2. See that? Now we're going to do a single. Put our hook through the 2 legs. There we go. We're going to yarn over and pull it through the stitch. There you go. Yarn over and complete the stitch. Okay? And we're going to do that all the way to the end, and I'll meet you when we have a couple stitches left. Okay, I have just a couple stitches left here. And so we're going to finish these up. As you can see, this is why we have this in here, right? Because otherwise, look, 1, 2, 3, right? You might look at the end here and go, oh, that's not a stitch. That's that single crochet. That's that chain that I made to go up to the next row. And that's how you miss a stitch. Now, if you're working in pattern, you might recognize that you're not in the right spot, because see, this is a double here. So it's single, double, single, and you know we're supposed to end on a double. So that might trigger you to recognize that you still had one more stitch to make, or you might forget, right? So it's just helpful to have these at the end. So let's continue to get to the end. So we have here a double, which means I need to make a single, right? Okay, so here's the top. Let's work into those 2 legs right there that have gone through the 2 legs. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. We have 2, we need 1. So we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, and we have our single crochet. Okay, the next one's a double. So I'm going to yarn over, go through both legs. There you go, I'm through both legs. Yarn over, pull through. 3 loops, right? Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Nice, right? Great. Next, let's do a single. We're going to put our hook through the 2 legs. There we are, 2 legs. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2. There we go. Okay. So now we're at our last stitch. Yes, you could take the hook out now, the stitch marker out and work into it, or you can just leave it and work into it, right? I use it as leverage to get into that last stitch, because otherwise I don't have project over here to hold on to anymore to get control of my work, so that I keep my tension nice, right? I don't have anything to hold on to. But if you leave the stitch marker in, you can hold on to that stitch marker now, right? And so we know this needs to be a double because it's the last stitch. So we're gonna yarn over, go through both legs. I'm using this as leverage to hold the project. There's both the legs. Yarn over and pull through. See that? Now I can just grasp here, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, and now we're at the end. So you now see we have a double on top of a single, which means we've worked into every stitch. And you can even count. And you might say, how do I count? Easily. You count the V's on the top. Each little V is a victory for a stitch that you've made, right? V for victory, right? You have conquered 30 stitches on this row. And you see that stitch marker is on the back, which is actually our front, right? But we just worked the wrong side. So we flip it over and you'll see that's the front side, right? We're at the end. I don't take mine out yet. I just leave it there, right? I'll show you what we're about to do. We're about to go to row 3. So what I'm going to do is yarn over and chain, right? Because we have to get back up to the height to do row 3. So I'm going to turn my work. My working yarn is towards the back now. There's the 2 legs of our single crochet, our double crochet that we're about to make our single crochet in, right? Okay, so we chained 1 and we turned our work, and now we're on the right side again, and we're going to start row 3. So what are we going to do? We're going to hold the yarn. We're going to go into both legs of this stitch that we need to work into, which is the first one, right? We're going to yarn over, because remember that we always start single and end double. So we have 2, yarn over, pull through 2, right? There we go. And we've started our first one. This is the point that I take my hook, my stitch marker out from here, okay? And I put it through the 2 legs of the stitch I just made. You can also wait and do it after you've done the second stitch so that it's not as cumbersome. So what we could do is just lay our stitch marker down, pick up our working yarn because we've made our first stitch, and we're going to go into the legs of our second stitch, which is a double, so we can yarn over, go into those 2 legs, right? We're going into the 2 legs, see? And we're going to yarn over, pull through, so we have 3, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now it's easier to put our stitch marker into that first stitch, which is right here, right? These 2 legs here. But in the beginning, after I had made 2, sometimes it was hard for me to tell them apart. That's why I tend to try to teach people to go ahead and put it in before you make the second stitch, just so you don't get confused. But this speckle yarn actually makes it a little easier, because if you remember, you go, oh, my first stitch had the piece of blue on it. At least it worked out on this row. So then, you know, the V with the green is your second, and the V was with the blue was your first. But we're using, that's because it's the speckle. And then you close your safety pin, your stitch marker, okay? And then you keep going. And you need to keep track of your rows, guys, because otherwise we could just do this forever and you're going to end up with a scarf, which that wouldn't be a bad thing. If you want 100% cotton scarf, go crazy, but you don't have enough yarn to make a scarf. You have enough to make a scarf or a Cabbage Patch maybe, or a toddler. But we need to keep track of our rows. So that's why on your pattern, I gave you little bubbles that you can fill in so that you keep track of your rows. But you can also do it by counting what's here. And we can go ahead and cover that now because it's easy, right? Let me back out for you. So while we're here, let's take a teaching moment, as we say at work, right? You see how this is curving a bit? That's completely normal. The reason it's doing that, it's because your chain that you made at the very beginning is slightly tighter than the rest of these stitches. So how do we combat that? You just pull on it a little bit. Look at that. Now it's perfect. Stretch it just a little bit and then it's fine. And if you look, the end project is just fine. You see? It doesn't look like that. The bowing is normal. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. You just give it a tug and it straightens it out. So how do we count our stitches? Well, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and make my big loop. And now's a perfect time to show you. Let's say your break is over and now you have to go back to work. Boo. Well, you don't want for this to pull out, because if it does, you're going to lose stitches, right? Okay, well, we don't want that to happen. I'll go ahead and show you what do you do if you do. Well, if it pulls out, okay, let's just say that happens. Don't freak out. Let me come back in. Here we go, right? Remember those two loops that were on your hook that you had that tells you you're not done? There they are, right? I just put my hook right back through them. There you go, right? So now we know we just need to yarn over and complete the stitch. Boom, done, right? But now I want to show you how we're going to count. So how do we prevent that from happening again to where we lose our stitch? I pull my hook out a little bit to give us a bigger loop like that so that the hook comes out easy. I'm going to pinch so that my hand doesn't pull that stitch out, because I'm going to take my hand out of the yarn. Okay, so there's that big fat loop. And this is where cute little Hello Kitty comes into play, or whoever you have. You might have Karapi or Karomi or My Melody. You might have one of her friends, right? So now, if you look, this is just like a lever back earring. You just hook through your live loop that our hook was just in, and you close your lever back the same way you did with your safety pin, right? But now you have a cute and adorable Hello Kitty to welcome you back to your project after your break is over, and you go back to it at lunchtime, right? Look at that. Look how cute that is. That's why I just love cute little stitch markers. Makes my project so much happier. I love them. Okay, so Hello Kitty is going to hold our spot while we count our rows. Well, you know we only have 2 rows, right? But how do you count them? For me, on this pattern, it's different with every project you make. But for me, with this pattern, what I found to be easiest is to look at and find a single crochet. Well, how do you find a single crochet on your first row? It's the double crochet is double height, right? Well, if you look here, I can tell that that's my single crochet on top, because all you have is 2 legs, okay? But down here, when you're looking at a double crochet, it looks scrunched. See that? See how it looks like it's scrunched, but right next to it looks very neat? That means that's a double, that's a single, and that's why we're getting this texture. Because when you put single, double, single, see, not scrunched, scrunched. Just a V going this way. Here, kind of scrunchy. That's how we're getting this really cool texture. Because every time you put single, double, single, it scrunches that double down and makes it squish, which kind of gives it this puffy look. So the easiest way to count is to go, well, let's see. Here, I have 2 legs, that's a single. So I know on top of that is a double. So like down here, I have 2 legs, scrunched, 2 legs. 2 legs, scrunched, 2 legs. Again, I'm trying to look through the camera and it's screwing me up. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. You could put a hash line, like keeping tally. You could make a tally mark. You could put a check mark on a piece of paper. You could put a hash mark on your phone. You could do whatever, however you want to count it. You can bubble it in on your pattern. But you want to keep track of your rows, because we're going to have 25 in this. Let me go zoom back out so you can see. We're going to have a total of 25. We have 2 and we're on our 3rd row. So now it's lunchtime and you want to get back to work on your project, right? So what do? Well, you give Hello Kitty a little tug so that she pulls your yarn out for you, right? To make so you don't lose your stitch. You open your stitch marker and you take it off, and you can leave it open and laying down. Leave your loop big so you can get your hook back in. There you go. Cinch it down so you can resume work, right? And you see that you ended on a double, right? Because you can see it's twice as high as this one. So you know you ended on a double. So now you know you just need to go into the 2 legs here, right? 2 legs, yarn over, pull through. There you go. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay? And then keep going. You made a single, so now it's a double. Yarn over, go through the 2 legs, go through both parts of your V, yarn over, pull through. We have 3. Yarn over, pull through 2. Almost done. Yarn over, pull through 2. Okay? There's your double. Now we do a single, right? There goes your hook, 3 to 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. There you go. Okay. There you go, guys. I will meet back up with you when we're a few rows through, and then I will go over with you what do we do in case we've lost count and we're halfway through our project, let's say. I'll meet you back here for that. Okay, guys, we're back, and I've made some progress with my rows. I did not want to go ahead and make an entirely second dishcloth because I want to save this yarn so that I can give it to you guys, because this here is enough to make a little bit more than 2 of the cloths. So I wanted to be sure that I save this for you guys. So I had used what I had left of 1 ball of the solid orange for the sample that I made when I was making the pattern. And so I wanted to save the really cute stuff for you guys. Okay, so I've worked several rows of the pattern. Hello Kitty is holding our spot. And now I wanted to show you how we're going to finish the last row, which would be number 25. So what we're going to do is thank Miss Kitty for holding our stitch, and we're going to put her back there and get our hook. And so we're at the very tail end of row number 25. And if you remember correctly, the even rows are the wrong side and the odd rows are the right side. So 25, odd number, right row, right? So now what we need to do is to finish off and give ourselves, oops, wrong end, the loop at the end, just so we can hang it from a hook if we want to. You don't have to do this. You're more than welcome to omit this portion, but if you do want to do it, I'm going to show you how to now. So we're here at the end. I'm going to zoom in again. Okay, we're here at the end. There's our last stitch. We've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. See, that's why I got to watch in the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left. Okay, so we are on a single. So now we're going to go to double. So that's yarn over through the 2 legs, yarn over, and then pull through, and then we pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, single crochet, no yarn over. We go through both legs, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. double. So we're going to yarn over through the 2 legs, yarn over, pull through. We have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There we go. 2 to go. So we have a single. So we're going to just put our hook through the 2 legs, 1, 2, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And our very final stitch, yay, we almost have a dishcloth. Hold the stitch, yarn over, go through the 2 legs, and through the 2 legs. Remember, sometimes these, it's made of 4 yarns wrapped together, 4 strands wrapped together. So sometimes it wants to come apart, but we're just gonna muscle through it. And then we're gonna pull over, yarn over and pull through 2. And then yarn over and pull through. So we have 3 on the hook. Now we yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, right? So at this point, since this is our very, very last stitch, I can take my stitch marker out because we're done with it completely. Now, to make our loop, all we're going to do is do some chains. You remember that from the very beginning, right? So I'm going to put my finger to hold my yarn to steady it. Got control, my fingers, my left hand, my non-dominant is holding my project. I've got my tension, right? Which, let me come a little closer. There we go. So I have better control. And I've got my finger on the loop that's on my hook. Okay? So we're going to make a chain of 10. So we're going to do 1, yarn over, pull through for 2, yarn over, pull through for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so now we have 10 chains on our hook. See that? Okay, now we're going to take our hook, and you see here we're at the very end. So you're like, well, where am I going to work into? If you look at the side of our dishcloth, so we're going to turn it. Do you see these 2 legs right here? That's the side of the double crochet that you worked the row before. Not this row that we just finished on, because that's right here and it's 2 bumps. But below, we did a double crochet and then we chained 1 and then we turned and we did a single. And when you turned from the double to the single, you ended up with 2 legs there. So what we're going to do is do what you know how to do by now. You're going to take your hook, you're going to pass it through both of those legs. Sometimes it's a little fiddly, but that's okay. There. It's not that hard, really. There we go. We got our hook through, right? So we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through those. And this is where you would normally make a single crochet, right? Because you've got 2 on your hook and you would yarn over and pull through and make 2. But because we don't want a single crochet here, we're just trying to lock a stitch so that it draws our end into the side here so that we have the loop attached to the side and we form a total loop here. We're now just going to take that leg that we just pulled through and we're going to pull it through here. This is how you secure at the end, and then you will leave a tail of about 4 to 6 inches and you'll cut your yarn. So let's just say, for example, you don't want this loop. You would prefer to not have it because you store them in a drawer or whatever it is, right? So let me pull out my hook. Let me undo my work here because I want to show you how you would finish with that as well. So I'm going to pull out my chains I just made, but I'm going to stop to make sure, whoops, that I don't pull out my stitches. So now I'm at the very end, right? So then what you would do is you would chain 2, 1, 2, then you would cut 4 to 6 inches and you would just continue to pull through your end through so that you could cinch down. If you don't want to do that either, your third option, because that leaves like a little nub, and that's a very secure way of tying off. If you would rather not do that, you can just pull through one all the way and then we'll seam through. I don't want to cut this because, again, I want to save this yarn for you guys. But what I'm now going to do is get a needle and show you how to weave in the other end, and you will use the technique for this end as well. So what I'm going to teach you with our end here, that, remember, it's been sitting over here waiting all this time patiently for us to finish. I'm going to show you how to weave this end, and you'll do this one the same way. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're going to pretend that's not there because I want to save this for you guys. And we're going to worry about this end here. So I think it's safe to say everybody probably has a sewing needle in their house. And usually just a normal sewing needle would work. But because we're working with a thicker cotton yarn, if you're going to just use a sewing needle like you would repair a hem or sew a button back on something, or that kind of stuff, it's kind of hard to, there we go. It's kind of hard to get this thick yarn through this little needle, right? But you could just literally spend $1 at Walmart or Michael's or whatever and get a little bit heavier sewing needle. If you already have one in your sewing kit, then you're already one step ahead. You could also choose to purchase one like this that has kind of an angle to the end of it, which just might make hooking into stitches a little bit easier for you. Unfortunately, I don't own enough of these to be able to provide one for every one of you guys, but I mean, you could just easily go on Amazon and buy a set of various sizes sewing needles, or like I said, head to Michael's or Walmart and pick up a set, and then you'll have them forever. So all we're going to do is just feed our yarn through the eye of the needle and give ourselves a little tail, okay? Now, you don't want to do this on the front of your work. Remember, we still have our stitch marker at the bottom showing us the front of our work. It's just a little unsightly, so you want to go to the back of your work. So what you're going to do is you just want to weave it in, right? You just kind of want to hide it amongst your stitches. Let me get you in focus. There we go. So the first thing I do is go into the 2 legs on the back here of our very first stitch, which was a single crochet, because I want to bring this in and I don't want to do it too much so it makes it pucker, and then it looks uneven with a final result. So there we go. We're just going to pull that through, right? There you go. So it's nice and hidden, and you're just going to do that through some more of these stitches. So here I'm picking up 2 legs from our double crochet that's next to it. There you go. See that? And we just pulled it in even more. And then it helps if you maybe turn your work and go back the way you came and go back this way through 2. You just want to go in maybe 2 to 3 different directions, sewing in maybe 1 to 2 inches total, not even. It's just enough that you want to go through 2 to 3 different directions, so it's harder for it to work out of the project when we're using our dishcloths in our daily lives, whether it's going through the washing machine because you've used it, or you're actually using it to wash dishes or whatever. And keep in mind, this is also great for a face washcloth too, you know, for in the shower, or washing your dog, or washing your countertops. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You can make pretty much anything you can think of. So I hope that I'm providing you with the minimal tools needed to get you on a journey of making your very own, use a wonderfully made dishcloth, but giving you the tools you need to make lots of fun things to come. So that's it, guys. That's all I have to show you today. I thank you for hanging out with me, and trusting me with your crafting journey, and I look forward to the next thing that we can make together. Bye, guys.